It's fantastic. And also thank you, because I really appreciate the fact that, I mean, in these times of kind of isolation from COVID and conflict with kind of Trump and the war, it's really nice to see this film about a kind of a sinister soul who kind of sees the different perspective of different people and starts to sympathize with them all. Obviously, I know that all of these things going on right now won't have been the kind of the seed for the film, but can you kind of briefly explain where the incentive came for the kind of this perspective of the storytelling that you wanted to tell with the film?
Yeah, it's always a little bit. I never know if I'm answering it correctly, because it kind of, anything creative I do comes out of like the gut, from an instinctive part of me that like is completely unconscious, and it's only like years later that I make connections. Like, I mean, there's even things I find where like, without going into too much detail, like just bits of my relationship with my husband like emerged in some sentences that are spoken on screen that I'm like, I only realized 5 years later when I was shooting the film, that I was like, oh my God, to the extent that I could just screenshot of the script and send it to him. He's like, oh my God. And he knows what I was talking about. But this was obvious to us until 5 years later. And then in terms of the isolation, in retrospect, I'm thinking about like, when I wrote it, I was living in England for that same husband's work. And I was in Bristol, where I didn't know anyone. And I could go like 3 weeks at a time without literally speaking to another person other than him. And it was actually the second time in my life I was a migrant and feeling very isolated from my setting and sort of like just being very much the outsider. I have a feeling that may have shaped the story. And there's in all of my writing of people who are kind of trapped in circumstances beyond their control and trying to scramble their way out. And I mean, it goes way back, even just from like when I was little and like finding myself in settings where I knew I didn't belong and just going, no, but I know there's something more and I need to be outside of this. And there was a panic that would set in a primal way. And then, yeah, even just like, I wasn't isolated from humanity when I was little, but like I did always feel very much, I was looking at how people were interacting in a way that was very mysterious to me. Like there's things that other people understand instinctively about interaction that to me, I had to learn them to understand it. And that's only become clear to me in recent years. I think after I wrote this film, or maybe around the time I was writing it, but none of this was a conscious intellectual process. Like, it all just comes out of the churn and the word vomit on my laptop that I'm trying to kind of type out frantically, and then I go, okay, let's shape this into something coherent.
I mean, talking of shaping things, the shape shifting itself is very violent, very gruesome. I mean, usually in these body swap films, either you kind of make a wish or blow a candle in on, and you kind of they switch bodies now. But in here, it's completely the opposite. But at the same time, it never feels gratuitous. I don't know if I was reading too much into it, but I felt that the kind of showing so much of the gore was almost like revealing to the audience that at the end of the day, we're all kind of the same flesh and blood. Was that something that was kind of the instinct behind you creating that? Or
I just sort of felt, I know, absolutely. Like, I think it's also the sense of, we're all biology, in the end. And I wanted to keep it as, like, obviously there's a supernatural element to it, but that shapes it. It's just not just an element, but I wanted to keep things as earthbound and grounded as possible. And I'm actually extremely squeamish. Like I can look at horror on screen, even just directing it. I was like, okay, this goes in there, and you put it there, like, and somehow it hopefully works out. But no, I felt like pretty much the guiding principle all through shooting the movie was like, how is she feeling in this moment? What would she be experiencing? How do I put viewers under her skin, essentially? And you go to her, like, entrails taken out of a body are the same, like just something sludgy in the way that a bunch of leaves on a tree or something floaty. They're all just textures and substances she hasn't been exposed before, and she just explores them like a newborn almost. So her attention at the moment is on this part, and like, as much as I personally don't want to go there, like, you need to honor that perspective. And I didn't want to obviously make it for schlock, or I didn't want to like make it spectacle, because she's not experiencing it that way. It's just something ordinary to her. That's how it kind of came about. And then also just because a lot of the character's journey is about realizing that textures and substances isn't what makes you human, it's feelings, and they come from somewhere. It's not about imitating them. You start from that sense of biology to then find the soul inside.
Brilliant. Well, we've got to wrap. So thanks very much for your time, Goran. I wish you the best of luck with the film when it comes out next week. And I hope to speak to you again sometime soon.
Thank you, Howard. Hope so as well.
Take care.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Take
care.
Kaži Noomi, čo zakopat. Veš, teroj nami. Ne čamašat.